The weather seems cooler today and there seems like there's less people out. Go figure, as it's usually the other way around. With that in mind, what did I read today? How about this first one, where it seems like there's more news in the US where officials want more in terms of the ability to take down drones. This one relates to that crash where the drone apparently crashed into an emergency helicopter during those floods in Texas. This one says, drone crashes, security threats have states demanding power to take them down. As it says here, while authorities were desperately trying to save people from the deadly 4th of July floods in Kern County, Texas, a private drone collided with a search and rescue helicopter and forced it to make an emergency landing. One of the latest incidents in a trend of uncrewed aerial vehicles flying into restricted zones. In January, a drone crashed into a firefighting aircraft battling the Palisades wildfires in California, according to federal prosecutors, damaging the plane's wing. Now, the state governors and industry experts are calling on Congress to give state and local officials more leeway to control rogue drones, an issue that will be in the spotlights as the US prepares to host the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Summer Olympics. The Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, Defense, and Energy have the legal authority to intercept and disable illicit drones, but state and local law enforcement don't have the authority to take them down. And it says here, quote from local officials, they can maybe find the operator and ask them politely to land the drone. Michael Robbins, Chief Executive Officer of the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International, said during a House subcommittee hearing on drone security this week. But until Congress expands their detection and mitigation powers, law enforcement is left without many tools right now. That was interesting to think about because you guys remember that other story I read, the one where in the US, I believe it was in Michigan, there's that guy that's flying his drone and using it as a camera to record and live stream what's going on with various police incidents. And there were cases where the police told the person, hey, stop live streaming this, for example, because they feel him doing so is giving away all of their tactical positions and all that to the actual criminal, since it is open to the public, like anyone can see it. But in general, he just kept insisting he's not breaking the law or anything like that, so he should be able to do it. But if you guys remember, now the guy was going through a court case, so that would be interesting in this regards. Would those powers enable a police officer, like in that instance, to immediately ground someone or to take it down if they wish because they don't like it in that sense? I would think it's not a straightforward topic too, because you could argue like in that particular incident, people will say, yeah, you're interfering, take it down, make it illegal and so forth. It's for everyone's safety. But what happens if you're in a situation where there are, let's just say, an official or unfortunately, let's just say a police officer doing something scandalous in that way and you're actually recording it and they come up to you and say, nope, I don't like you doing this, so take it down. And you can't say that's never happened. That's happened throughout the world for some of the silliest things actually, because of the drone laws and so forth, where you have police officers going after people who are literally just capturing the scenery and all that. But they do mention in the article as well, where it comes down to having some kind of countermeasure. Why don't you have something in place like there, honestly, like an official, for example, to take out a quote rogue drone in that regards? In my opinion too, it brings up that topic again of redundancy. You already have laws in place to take care of, let's just say, quote, bad actors. Why do you need stuff specifically for drones in that regards? For example, let's just assume there's some kind of terrorist or somebody is using the drone in a bad way. They're literally taking their drone and they're trying to fly it right into somebody's face or whatever, like they want to hurt them intentionally. Are you telling me, for example, as a police officer or an official or whatever, you're gonna stand there and say, yeah, I guess I have to keep letting you harass that person, I have to let you hit him and so forth because, hey, the law says I can't do anything about it because it's an aircraft, I have no authority? I wouldn't think so, correct? You should have the authority, I would imagine, to actually, let's say, quote, neutralize the person in some way. I would think that's true for everything, isn't it? I mean, if someone takes a rock in the ground, I don't think you're gonna stop and say, okay, sorry, there's no law, for example, where you holding the rock is quote illegal. But if you see, for example, an intent where the guy looks like he's gonna hurt someone and all that, I think it gives you the right as an authority figure, for example, to actually do something about it, correct? Especially if the guy already threw the rock. So I don't understand personally why it needs to be that complicated overall. It just seems to be more about, again, control. Who can and can't use this in general, where and when, up to them. That's what it seems like. And with that in mind, actually, this is kind of related with that thought in terms of trying to take care of the situation and all that. Apparently, there was someone around this area that stole an airplane and started to go around the airport as a way to protest, for example. This one here says, suspect accused of stealing Victoria Flying Club plane charged with terrorism offense. A man accused of stealing a plane from Victoria, causing the Vancouver International Airport to shut down its airspace on Tuesday, has been charged with hijacking, according to the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. The Richmond Court Registry identified the suspect as Shaheer Cassim, 39, and said he appeared in court at 2 p.m. Wednesday. The PPSC says he was charged with hijacking, which constitutes terrorist activity and a terrorism offense. Mounties say Cassim allegedly threatened a flight instructor before boarding a 4-seat Cessna 172 plane. Under the Criminal Code of Canada, a charge of hijacking could mean a person is sentenced to life in prison, saying, quote, investigators have determined the suspect acted with an ideological motive to disrupt airspace, says Sergeant Tammy Lobb, Media Relations Officer with Federal Policing, Pacific Region. Thankfully, no one was injured during this incident, said Lobb late Wednesday. Can you imagine that? This guy's stealing a plane and just flying around the airport in protest, like you don't know what he's going to do? Crash it, for example? That would be really unfortunate. And in terms of what exactly he was protesting about, just based on everything I was reading, apparently it had to do with things like climate activism and religious beliefs. And he appeared in various news conferences, I guess, in 2012, according to all this, about things like global warming and so forth. And in social media posts, apparently he describes himself as, quote, the messenger of Allah sent to save humanity from climate change. And during this time, according to this, fighter jets were actually sent from NORAD, because it says here a spokesperson from NORAD told Czech News F-15 Eagles were sent out of an American base around 1:30 p.m. Tuesday, with Canadian CF-18 Hornets also in the process of responding to the incident. Once it was confirmed that the aircraft had landed, the NORAD response was then stood down. So overall, it's kind of like those situations you've often seen where there's protesters blocking roads and all that, whereas this guy decided to do it in the airspace. But this makes you think too, just in terms of this response, in my opinion, this is kind of what it has to be with things like drones too, in my opinion. Not necessarily more over-the-top regulations, you have to have ways to deal with it. Like this, they immediately responded to it in terms of sending like fighter jets and so forth. Like why don't the officials have their own, quote, drones, for example, just to deal with it? If they think there's a rogue drone, it's in restricted airspace and all that. Like with this guy, I don't think all the regulations in the world is going to stop him from doing what he did, correct? I mean, according to this, he was a licensed pilot and all that for years. People knew him in the community. Do you think he cared about the rules, for example, during that state of mind? I don't think so. So you need to find ways to actually deal with it, in my opinion. All right, see you guys later.